Today we're going to talk about the difference between Irish whiskey KEY and Scotch whiskey KY. So both Ireland and Scotland take their whiskey making pretty seriously, so much so that they made laws about it. So here's a few rules for Ireland from the Irish Whiskey Act of 1980. The whiskey must be distilled and aged in Ireland. It must be distilled to an alcohol by volume level of 94.8% or less. It must be distilled for a minimum of 3 years in wooden casks. If there's more than one distillate, I'm not really sure. If there's more than one distillate, it has to be labeled as blended Irish whiskey. Just remember, this is law in Ireland. There are actually a bunch of different flavors of whiskey, but the types that they're categorized under, there's only about 4. Irish single malt, single pot still whiskey, blended Irish whiskey, single grain Irish whiskey. It's all just whiskey to me. For the record, I don't drink alcohol and probably never will because I think it's disgusting and tastes like a mix of grape juice and vinegar. Lots and lots of vinegar. Just like Ireland has its laws, Scotland has its own laws regarding the creation of whiskey called the Scotch Whiskey Regulations 2009. It must be produced in Scotland from water and malted barley. It must be converted into a fermentable state by endogenous enzyme systems. I don't know what those are. It must be fermented by adding only yeast. Its alcoholic strength has to be less than 94.8%. It must be aged in Scotland for 3 or more years in oak casks no larger than 700 liters. It's required to have the color, taste, and smell of its raw materials. There can be no extra stuff added other than water and a specific type of caramel color. And the minimum alcoholic strength must be at 40%. As far as type goes, there's single malt, single grain, blended malt, blended grain, and blended Scotch whiskey, which is 1 or more single malts mixed with 1 or more single grains. So what's the difference really? I mean, from an outsider's point of view, there isn't really one. The only real difference is in the location from which they come. Ireland, Scotland. Other differences include the distillation and aging processes, the ingredients used, and the spellings of all things. Yes, that's right. They are spelled differently. Irish whiskey is spelled W-H-I-S-K-E-Y, while Scotch whiskey is spelled W-H-I-S-K-Y. I hope you learned something today about the difference between Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey. If you have any suggestions, email me at evpedia@gmail.com, go to my Tumblr, evpedia.tumblr.com, or leave a comment down below. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.